that those are some of the teams I remembered most probably.
So through the years, what made playing in Buckley unique?
Well, there's lots of things unique about Buckley, and I wrote down a few things that popped in my head. First of all, we have a great ballpark. We've had baseball in Buckley since 1860, and the first records from probably 1890s, whatever. And we've continually had a ball team in the EI League, which was established in 1936. Buckley's the only team that's had a team all those years without any years that we didn't. We have a great ballpark, and the reason for that is we have lots of volunteers, people who are willing to work on the field before the game and do all the things that are necessary. We have a concession stand, which is second to none. We've always had that. We've always had liquid refreshments for those who care to participate in that part of the game, and that's part of baseball. We have a food stand, which is run by the ladies, the auxiliary from the Legion, and this team is sponsored by the Buckley Legion Post, and it has been for as long as I can remember, and they get support from, they have a 50-50 drawing, which generates some funds. Also has a cash bash, which they sell tickets, $100 tickets, and they have a drawing and whatever, and that generates some funds. They sell season tickets, and we also have fans who will make donations and make it go. Most every year there's a reunion that all the past players are invited to come back for a game, and that's always fun. And one thing about Buckley is we have good attendance. Nothing like it used to be. In the early days, there might be 1,000 or 1,500 people at a game. That was before the days of TV and everything else that goes on a Sunday afternoon. And they're good crowd support. They are proud of the team, and they take a lot of pride in the team. And we have a group along the right field line who makes it quite miserable for some of the right fielders, but that's been that way for as long as I can remember. Another unique thing is get the kids involved. We give them a quarter to bring back the foul balls. So
used to be a dime.
Used to be a dime. Well, it's a quarter now. Yeah, I did it for a dime when I was a kid, and used to sit on the scoreboard and get a quarter or 50 cents to help put up the score each inning. And that was things I remember too about being a kid out there. After the game, you'll see kids out on the field, little guys, not so little guys, all playing together out there. That's the future of the Dutchmasters. We've always had a competitive team. We have over 1,000 wins in regular season games over the history of the EI League, and that continues to grow. We've been a member of that league for since 1936, and we hold the most regular season titles over that period of time, most tournament titles over that period of time, and we have a winning percentage of about 70% over that period of time. So there's a lot to be proud about the Dutchmasters.
Buckley's have always had a really good team, but you've played against some good teams through the years. Who are some of the better players that you remember playing against back in the 60s?
Well, there's been a lot of good players. There's been some guys who have gone to played minor league or major league ball, but one of the guys I remember most was a fellow from Rantoul, and his name was Bill Gillespie. And it just so happened that the field there at Rantoul had a short right field fence, and this guy was a left-hand batter, and it wasn't fair because he I don't know how many home runs he hit out there. He was just a powerful guy, and I know we played it. Me playing first base, I'd play as deep as I could because he could hit that ball just really hard. And
who did he play for?
He played for the Rantoul Merchants, I think they were called. He's one guy I remember a lot. I don't know. There's lots of good players over the years.
So I know you were part of a group that put together called a Dutchmaster All-Star team or all-time team. Who, from your years of watching the Dutchmasters, who are the best players by position that you remember that played for the Dutchmasters?
Are you talking about that I played with?
Let's start with what you play. Who you played with?
Okay, I'm sure I missed somebody, and that's going to happen. But the guy I was talking about, Bill Weisenbarn, he used to play leadoff man. He played second base. He got on base a lot. He just found a way to get it done, and he batted he batted for an average. He always batted 300 or better probably, and he was a good player for many years. Shortstop that I played with for many years was Butch Kimmer. Butch was a good shortstop. He played too deep sometimes, I thought, because he would put me to the test on first base with throws in the dirt or whatever. But he was a good player. He's a good hitter, a bad ball hitter. He could hit bad balls as good as ones down the middle. That was one thing that kind of set him apart. Joe Dwyer, he was a catcher, and he was a good hitter, good leader. Was a manager one time. Jerry Dittman was a little guy who played the infield, and he was just a good, consistent player. Probably the best of all would be Virgil Shivey. He played a lot of years before I started, but he was kind of the tail end of his career when I started. But he was probably one of the greatest pitchers that I've seen around here for many years. And he even had a bad arm. He had a chip.
You saw him after he hurt his arm too.
Yeah, he came back from the service, and he'd hurt his arm in the service pitching ball or whatever, and he was hurting out there. But he still was a great pitcher and great guy. Also a good hitter. You know, in those days they didn't have designated hitters. Everybody batted, and he had a consistently good batting average as well. I might mention that Virgil was a manager. He worked on the field. He did everything with Dutchmasters, and then on our 50-year anniversary, they named the field after him, and Shivey Field. Dick Dorn, one of the guys that I mentioned about being a pitcher, he pitched for probably 20 years with the Dutchmasters, and he was a left-hander, threw a screwball. Never could figure out how he made that work, but he was there a long time and a good consistent pitcher over those years. A couple other guys that come to mind are Gordie Hall. He was a local guy here whose grandpa and Dad had played for the Dutchmasters, and he led the league in hitting a couple of years. Mick Larson was another guy. He was from the Melvin area, which neighboring town here. And he was a good pitcher, good hitter. So those are some of the names that I.
Now you
remember.
play generally just one 9-inning game on Sundays, right?
Yep.
Occasionally during the week, but about the time when you retired, is that when they started going to doubleheaders on?
I think 2 years before I retired, they started going to doubleheaders.
And that when it was time for you to hang it up.
That's about the time.
Now, after you left the Dutchmasters, after you retired, you were involved with the organization, or you have been through the years. Tell us about that.
Well, there was a period of time when, after I retired, that I wasn't really involved because kids were growing up, and we did other things. I mean, I still was a fan, but I wasn't really involved that much. And then later on, somebody asked me if I would serve as a commissioner for the league, and I said I would. So I did that for a couple of years, and after a couple of years, the current president decided he wanted to step down, and they asked me if I would do it, which I did, and I think I was president of the league for, I believe it was 8 years, and we went through some transition over that time. We had gotten down to 4 teams about the first year I was president, and we needed to do something different. We decided to go to the wood bat, and whatever we did must have been right, because we ended up getting teams that were wanting to use the wood bat, got into the league. We got up to 8, 9 teams after that, and that's currently where we're at.
So in the subsequent to you retiring, who are some of the better Dutchmaster players that you remember from the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and through today?
Wow, there was lots of players. The one that stands out in my mind is probably one of the best all-around players that I can remember, and that was Jake Krause. He was a catcher, switch hitter. He could hit right or left, hit for power from both sides. He was really a good player. Mark Shivey, who was drafted by the Cubs back in 1979. He came back. He hurt his arm, came back. He couldn't pitch, but he played first base, and he was a power hitter. He was really a good player. That's a couple guys that I really remember. Were more recent years we had Justin Schroeder. He was somebody that probably pitched for 10 years, and he was probably the best pitcher in the league for that period of time. He was a good fielding